In this video, Dan Ives from Webbush discusses the escalating backlash against Elon Musk, highlighting that it has evolved into a brand crisis for Tesla. Dan underscores the necessities for Musk to refocus on Tesla rather than his involvement with Dogecoin and X, formerly Twitter, arguing that Tesla's image as a political symbol is harming brand perception and investor confidence.
Doge, and I believe taking a step back from Doge is crucial to the name. And some will argue, we've been through it before, and I've been there from the beginning. I do believe the future of Tesla will really be determined how Musk handles the coming months. And I think that's why it's that much of a white knuckle moment. The longer term continues to be a golden sort of strategy. Near-termization.
So is the concern for you that the longer he remains at Doge, the more controversial Tesla as a brand is going to be, or is it a focus thing?
I think Tesla's become a political symbol, and that's a bad thing for any brand. And more and more, as you see, whether it's on the White House lawn or as we see more and more from DC, that's a bad thing for Tesla, because it comes down to Tesla shareholders. They own Tesla, and it's the reason we're bullish, because autonomous, disruptive tech, what I believe is, along with NVIDIA, one of the best disruptive technology companies over the next decade. But it's a crisis moment. And I think, when we wrote the note, it's really urging Musk, urging the board.
I'm not going to listen to you.
Look,
I sat across from him now. It's a long time ago. It was, you could argue, a different Musk back in 2023, May. But he said then, and I would assume he'd say the same thing to you now. I don't care, Dan. I'm going to say what I want to say and do what I want to do.
Yeah, and David, I think he could do what he wants to do. I think the issue now is it's not necessarily the stock or the money, because someone would be like, Musk doesn't care about that, but Musk does care about Tesla customers in terms of the brand. And I think when you look, if there wasn't such a bright future, then now it wouldn't even mean anything. But the irony is, it's probably the best technology innovation ahead when it comes to FSD, autonomous, and everything
But if
else.
it is, then shouldn't that stand on its own? And that was what the stock was all about anyway. It was never really about fundamentally selling cars, right? It was never valued that way. So if they're going to have the best technology and be leaps ahead, why does the brand perception matter?
Yeah, I think brand perception matters because ultimately it's about more and more you need. How many are going to do cyber cabs? What's FSD penetration going to look like? Do current customers continue to own more Teslas? And I believe, if he takes a step back here and starts to balance that, you haven't seen a picture of Musk in front of any Tesla sort of manufacturing factory since Trump took office. So I just believe it is important to balance, because Tesla investors need to know that Musk is running this company, and that's why right now it's really a crisis moment.
But I feel like, Dan, he could, you're saying, though, it's more the politicization of it. I mean, he could step back from Doge, but spend all his time on XAI or SpaceX or Neuralink, and still ignore Tesla.
But to that point, I think the political symbol is the issue. Because to some extent, when you look at the frustration that you're hearing from Tesla shareholders, they own the stock not to get into this political sort of crossfire lightning rod. And I think what started to happen is that if he takes a step back over the next 4 to 6 weeks, still stays in Doge, but just starts to balance this better, give a roadmap in terms of Tesla autonomous.
You're saying he has to do the hype job he's always done, right? The stock is basically where it was the last day of 2020. Earnings estimates have been cut in half for this year and next year over the last couple of years. I mean, therefore, he needs to get in there and what? Start to just cheerlead?
Well, he needs to lead this company. Because I think to some extent, it's like, what's Jensen doing every day? What's Cook doing? What's Nadella doing every day? And look, he's always had to balance, and that's the nature of Musk. But I believe the clock struck midnight for Musk to continue to go down this path. Now, he could continue to go down the path, but from a Tesla shareholder perspective, I do believe this thing has gone into more of a crisis mode relative to brand and relative to the future. And that's why I think longer term, it's the best disruptive technology out there, along with NVIDIA. But it's a moment of truth for Musk.
Who's running the Tesla right now, then?
It's a good question. I think, if you look, I do believe the innovation that's happening underneath Musk continues to accelerate. But in terms of Elon, in terms of, day to day, I think that's been That's been part of the frustration for investors.
But that was the case when he bought X and he was spending all the time on X.
I even forgot to mention X. Yeah, of course.
People were worried about the distraction, and then Tesla shares ran up.
But at that moment, Musk did take a step in terms of selling stock. He understood. He started to get more dialed in terms on the investor side. And I think the difference between when it came to Twitter X versus this is the political conception of it, because that continues to be the brand issue. And my whole point is you take a step back here, balance, hear what investors are saying. I understand everything Mike's saying as well. Then at least I think you have a scar. But if you continue down this path, that's where you have permanent brand damage. And that's the fear. And that's, and look, and that's why we kind of, the thousands of people that we hear from to kind of put it out there.
I think it's worse for brand Democrat, people lighting Tesla dealerships on fire, maybe than Tesla. But Dan, thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Dan Ives from Wedbush.